In today's video, we're going to add a new cutscene action to our game that will allow us to move the camera during our cutscenes. Hi, my name is Michael. Welcome to my 2D action and adventure RPG tutorial series. Follow along and learn how to create your own ARPG in Godot 4 using GD script. Hi everybody. In today's video, we're getting back to our cutscene system in the action RPG, and we're going to just add a new type of cutscene action for moving the camera. And so it's going to be pretty straightforward, and it's going to allow us to, have little transitions where the camera moves from the player to another part of the screen. And then at the end of the dialogue or the cutscene, then we want the camera to return back to the player. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. It's going to be pretty straightforward, like I said. Now, as we get going on this, I don't want to necessarily require you guys to have a new icon, but we do want something that's distinguishable here for our scene tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a simple approach, and we're just going to take one of these icons, duplicate it, and change the colors. So I'm just going to scroll down and find those. Let's see real quick. These are going to be in our GUI folder. There we go. I've got icons open. So I'm going to just choose this cutscene animation SVG. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to rename it to camera, I guess. And then we're going to go ahead and open this in our file manager. Because this is an SVG, we can actually just edit the code to change how this looks, or the markup, I should say. It's not code, but let's go ahead and just open this in Notepad++. Okay, so you can see here, if this looks familiar to you, then you're probably a web developer, but we've got SVG code here. And one thing that we're going to change is just simply this linear gradient. This is the gradient that's used on that rectangle. It's red to like a lighter red color. We're just going to change this. And these are hexadecimal values. Typically, you can use color names like red here. So if you knew a color name you wanted to use like blue, you could. But I want a particular blue. So I'm going to do, let's see, 00 for the red, AA for the green, and FF for the blue, which means lots of blue, quite a bit of green, no red. And then for the second stop, we're going to do 00 DD FF. Okay, just save that. And then when we go back, you'll see now we've got this kind of bright teal blue little icon. We're going to just use that for our new script so that it's, stands out here in the scene tree. Now let's go ahead and just look at these. I'm going to pull up this move cutscene action, and I want to actually go here and open this and show it in the file system. Okay, here we go. So we've got our interactables, dialogue, scripts, cutscene action move. I'm going to duplicate this one and we'll call it CutsceneActionCamera. And let's open that guy. So this one's going to be a lot like the move, but we can change it. We can change the icon it's pointing to be the camera. And then this, of course, needs a unique class name. So camera. And I'm going to go ahead and save that now that I've changed those. And we should be able to work with this. Okay, now obviously we just copied and duplicated an entire script that's got quite a bit in here, and we can reuse a lot of that, but some of this is not going to be useful to us for the camera. And one variable in particular is this object to move. It's a node 2D. We're not going to be assigning that, so I'm going to remove that. And as we remove some of these variables, of course, we're going to get errors throughout our code, so we'll clean those up. I'd like to keep the easing method, the move duration, and the move speed so that we still have those similar types of controls for this one. And I don't know that we need this animation speed factor either. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete that. And then what we've got left down here, we've got this target location, move direction, and distance to target. I think we do want a target location. Move direction, not going to be important for us. Distance to target, we'll probably use that as well. But we're going to need maybe some new variables here. We're going to need an access to our camera. So I'm going to just call this camera 2D. I don't need camera 2D. That's of type camera 2D. How about that? So just camera and then camera 2D. And then I also want a start location, which will be a vector 2. And that'll just equal vector 2.0 to start, or by default. Okay, there we go. Now in our ready function, this is great. We're going to keep that in there, just like we've done with the move. As soon as this node initializes, we want to store its global position as our target location. Because if you recall, we're dragging these little nodes out into the world, and wherever we drag them is where we want the animation or movement process to kind of end, right? Or end up. So we can keep that as is. And then let's go through here and let's clean up some of these errors and some of the other things that we need to address in our play function. Now, we don't have an object to move, but we will have a camera. So we're going to say if camera, and then we'll set the camera's process mode here, just like that. And then looking down here, we've got this if statement to see if our object is an NPC. We won't need any of that. So let's just take this whole section out. Okay, just like that. And then of course, we've got our tween that's trying to tween the global position of the object to move. I'm going to comment this line out for now. We're not going to tween the camera. And I'll show you why as we work through this. There are a couple ways. In fact, when I first built this in preparation, I kind of decided like, oh, maybe I'll just leave the camera on the player and animate the offset. And that actually worked really well, and it had the benefit of the camera staying with the player. The downside was it was really easy to just have the camera go outside the bounds of the level. So right now we've got this bounding box around our level, and these become the bounds for our camera. And the camera follows the player, but it won't go outside the bounds. But the offset will override that. And so in our example scene like this one, it's pretty much inevitable that if we do use the offset, we're going to end up showing these ugly edges of our map. And we just don't want to do that, right? And so the solution I came up with is a little bit different. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new node 2D, just a regular old node 2D. We're going to plop it in the world, and then we're going to make the camera a child of that node, and we'll actually animate that node. And then the camera is going to keep its bounds and all of that. And so it'll be able to kind of, stay within the bounds of the level. Okay. Let's go ahead though and clean up some of these other errors before we get into implementing that. And in fact, we don't need get move direction because we don't have that variable. We don't need this calculate distance to target. And then on tween finished is going to be different. Of course, here we're going to change this one to camera. Okay. We don't need this branch for the NPC. And so our on finished becomes really simple. Just you reset the process mode on the camera and then emit our finished signal. And then lastly, let's just handle this. We will still draw a little indicator, and you can get fancy with this if you want, but I'm going to just make this a blue color that kind of matches what we've got going on. And so this first circle is the little inner one. I'll make it aqua. That's kind of close to the color that we're working with here. And then for the outer circle, I don't know, let's pick another light blue. What kind of blues do we got? Cyan, dark cyan. Oh, dark turquoise. We'll just go with something like that. Whatever. Doesn't matter too much. I'm going to go ahead and save this. What do we got? We've got 2 errors left. Oh yeah, distance to target. I guess we missed these because we kept some of that code in. And we're going to go ahead and just change this. We're just going to calculate this distance to target here in line. And you'll notice we added up here a start location and we've got a target location. And so we're going to use this start location to kind of help us determine that. So before we can calculate this, let's go ahead and update our start location because that's going to be the global position of the camera. So we'll say start location equals camera dot global position. We're getting this first before we do anything with the camera. So while the camera is still parented to our player, right, or wherever it is in the world at the time that this script runs, we want to get that global position of the camera, capture that as our start location. Just like we do with the target location, we capture that as soon as the scene loads. Okay, and then now we can calculate our distance to the target, which is going to be our start location dot distance. So we want this to be distance to, and then we'll just use our target location. And now that we've done that, we can get rid of this get move direction right here. And that should get us ready to kind of finish implementing this code. Okay, so now that we've got this code cleaned up and kind of done a little bit of that, the next step that we need to do is address what I talked about, how we're going to create this new node and we're going to reparent the camera to the node, right? So let's do that right here. We're going to create a new variable to kind of keep track of this node. We'll call it the follow node. And this, of course, is of type node 2D. And then we can just say equals node 2D dot new, just like that. Okay, so that'll create a new node. And of course, this node is now just kind of floating out in the Godot imaginary space or something. It's not a part of our scene tree yet. And so we need to do that. We need to bring it in and get it ready to use. And there's actually kind of a nice, clever way we can do this. We could just get the scene tree root and that would work pretty well. But I want this node I just want to make sure it's in the same space as our player. I don't know that this is going to make a huge difference, but we can go player manager and then say .player And then we'll say dot add sibling. So what this will do is we can add this new node as a sibling of our player. So wherever the player is, it'll add it there. And we'll just say follow node, just like that. That kind of does maybe what would have been 2 lines of code in one, because otherwise we would get the parent, then add the child. And then before we're done with this follow node, though, we do need to set its position properly. So we'll say our follow node dot global position will equal our start position or start location. I probably should use position instead of location, whatever. At this point, we should be ready to reparent the camera to this node. So we'll say, well, I guess we need to get the camera, don't we? We're doing an if camera check here. So let's get the camera first before we can access it. So in order to get the camera, we're going to just say camera equals, and then there is actually a really handy function, and it's in the viewport. So we're going to need to get viewport. Okay, so now we have access to our game's viewport, and then the camera 2D is kind of an agent or element within this viewport. So we'll say, and there's a function to get it. So we can say get camera 2D. Obviously, we're doing a camera 2D because we're a 2D game. This would work for a 3D game as well. Just change that to 3D and you'd get your 3D camera. Okay, so this should get us a camera. If for some reason it didn't, then of course, you know, we would get this finished .emit instead. Okay, so now that we've got a camera and this code will run, we can say camera, and there's a reparent function. Okay, it's going to pull it from its current parent and pass it to the new parent that we provide here as the first argument. And the new parent will be the follow node. And then now we've reparented the camera and things are pretty good. This is actually kind of half of the main work. Just to recap real quick, we've now found our camera and assigned it to the camera variable in our script. And then we've set a few variables like the process mode on the camera, stored our start location, calculated the distance to the target, created a follow node, added it to our scene tree, and adjusted its position, and then reparented our camera to the new follow node. Now, in here, we've got this little if statement to check our timing method, and we use this to calculate either the move duration or the move speed based on how they're set. This is good. We don't have to touch this. We can just use that as is. And of course, most of our code for the tween here is good. We're creating a tween. We're setting the ease and the transition based on the export variables that we provide here. Okay, so really we just need to update this tween property call. Now that the camera is child of this node, it's going to do its camera follow to this node wherever it goes. So we'll just change the first variable, the object to follow, to the follow node. And we do want to adjust the global position, and we want to move it or tween it to the new target location using that move duration. So really, that's just about it. Let's go ahead and just save this. And I think now we're ready to add one of these to our scene and test it out. Okay, so here we are. I've got this dialog cutscene in here that I'm using to just kind of move this guy. Let's go ahead and just test this scene and remind ourselves what happens, because I don't remember. It's been a little while. Okay, so it just moves our NPC. And that thing, oh man, it does all sorts of stuff. Changes the lights, some dialogue. Okay, nice. Kind of silly cutscene, but it's an example of doing all the things, right? So I think what we could do is let's just add a camera move as the first item of this. So I'm going to do Control A, and I'm going to type camera. There we go, CutsceneActionCamera. Did we not update the icon on this guy? Cutscene_camera. Cutscene_camera.svg. Why you no like this? I should change it. I'm going to go ahead and just restart the project. That should be the thing that needs to happen for that to work. Okay, here we're back. You can see now we've got that little cutscene action there. It's our nice blue color. I'll drag it to the top. And I think we might still have that weird drag and drop bug. Although I've recently updated to Godot 4.5. We'll see if that happens to resolve that, but for some reason, I haven't really played around with the action RPG much in recent weeks because I've been working on my Metroidvania Forge series. So let's see. Yeah, this is here. Let's go ahead and move this around. Here it is. It's up in the top left. Okay, so we've got a color that matches our icon. And I think what we want to do is, let's assume that we're going to walk over here and then maybe we want the camera to come all the way towards the left. I don't know. And we're going to pick a timing method and a transition type and all that. And I think what we'll do is we'll use the timing method. I think duration is a good way to do it. I'm going to set it to like 2 seconds, so it's a little bit slower. Now what's going to happen is the node's going to move over 2 seconds, and then the camera is going to ease and follow it however it will. And so I think it'll look pretty smooth, but you may run into unexpected things. Like, in fact, let's test it once, and then I'll show you what I mean. So hopefully it works, of course, with the first test. We've moved over here. Okay, camera panned over to the left. Oh, you notice how it went up a little bit? So what was happening there is we had walked down, the camera had followed us down a little bit, and because the camera kind of follows, in fact, let's just demo this just walking with the player real quick so that I can explain it a little bit better. So when we walk to the up or to the side, like we hit a corner and the camera stops moving. If I walk diagonal, that didn't work very well. If I walk diagonal, I'm just getting it just perfect, I guess. Let's walk diagonal from here. Oh, I can't get it to do what I'm thinking. But sometimes the camera doesn't move how we might expect. And because we've got, like if the camera's down here and then it's moving diagonal over here, then at some point it has to move up. It's just not clear where the camera has to go as it follows this node, right? Because imagine it's moving straight to the left, but because the camera was down here, it's also got to move up at some point, and we just can't control exactly when that happens unless we animate the camera. But again, I don't want to animate the camera itself because otherwise we will lose our ability for it to be clamped. So I'm going to go ahead and just move this way over just to demonstrate this. Our camera's not going to go off screen even though that target's way over there, okay? And you can see it's slowly moving up, but it hit the edge, so it stopped moving to the left, right? So I guess that kind of actually illustrated what's going on there. It had to move up a little bit, but anyways. Obviously, we could tweak this, and we don't want to do that anyways. Maybe we know it just needs to move right about there. So there might be some trial and error, but already the camera move is working, right? It does what it does, okay? So that's pretty good. Now, the thing that doesn't happen right now, and let's go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this dialog cutscene here and move it out, and a dialog cutscene down here and move it out. I just want this one cutscene so that I can get through the dialogue quickly. And I'm going to go ahead and delete these 2 bits of text. Okay, so we just have one little dialogue cutscene thing and then some dialogue text. These guys, I'm going to go ahead and just delete these as well because we don't need them. I don't think we need them at this point. Let's go ahead and test the scene with just this, and let's see what happens with the camera. Okay, so right now the camera's following the player. If I talk to him, camera moves, cutscene plays, a little bit of dialogue, and now my player is no longer the child of the camera, or the parent, I mean, of the camera, so the camera is not following the player, right? We got to fix that issue. Okay, now this gets a little bit complicated, and in fact, even the solution that I'm going to present today may not avoid all of the issues that you could run into, so you may have to be creative in your own project. But essentially what I've decided is I want my camera to stay where I've moved it in most cases, and in fact, if we were to duplicate this camera cutscene thing and, oops, I named it W apparently, and move it over here, we'll be able to watch the camera move twice. Let's just test this real quick. Okay, it moves to the left, then to the right. And we want it to probably stay where it moved, right? If we moved it to a certain location, we're probably going to show something happening there. Maybe an NPC walks out, says something, then the camera moves back to the player. I don't know. You decide what it needs to do. It's going to stay at this location until we move it again or until we return it to the player, all right? And when we get to animating the player, we'll handle returning it to the player during a cutscene. But for now, because we don't have one of these actions to move the player, we're just going to make it so that when the dialogue ends, it'll return to the player, because that's essentially the end of our entire cutscene. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If you don't love that solution, then don't worry. The code that we're going to implement is pretty straightforward, so you can move it around to different locations as you see fit. And hopefully it'll give you the tools that you need to customize it and fit your own need. But I'm going to go ahead and go back into my scripts here. And actually, I want to open up 2 different parts of code than what we've been using. we want to be able to have a generic method that we can use to recenter or reset the camera on the player. We'll do that in our player manager first. So let's find that bit of code. And where the heck is that? Globals. There we go. Player manager. Okay, I'm going to just go down to the bottom of this script here, and we're going to make a new function. And this function, we'll just call it reset camera on player. Okay, there we go. We've got our new function. Now what we need to do is essentially kind of the same thing that we did in our camera cutscene action, right? We need to find the camera. So we can do that in a similar fashion. We'll just say VAR camera. And of course, this is a camera 2D. So I'm going to go ahead and specify that. This will equal the get viewport dot get camera 2D. Oops, that's not it. Get audio listener 2D. Nice. Get camera 2D. Okay, there we go. Okay, we found a reference to our camera. We should have a camera, but just to be safe, let's do a little if camera check before we do the rest of the code, you know, in case we don't find a camera. And then what we need to do here is we need to reparent the camera. But because we're going to call this code at the end of all of our dialogues at this point, we may not actually need to reparent the camera because maybe we didn't have a camera move action as part of the cutscene or dialogue that we're calling this on, okay? Because we're going to build it in to be as generic as possible. So I'm going to do a check. We're going to say if camera dot get parent equals player. Okay, well, so we'll get the camera's parent. If that's the player, then we know that we don't need to do anything. So we're just going to say return. And we can print something just so we can test this, maybe. There we go. Now, otherwise, we can just get our camera. Oh my gosh, I keep spelling camera. Camera dot reparent. And then, of course, the new parent is our player. And we have access to the player like this, like we've done, because this is our player manager, right? That's one of the variables that we have in here. Boom. Okay. And then lastly, we need to reset our camera's global position because, or not global position, but the regular position. So we're going to say camera dot position. And then I'm going to say equals vector2.0. Okay, there we go. And that should get the camera reset to our player. And it may need to move a little bit, but here we go. I'm going to say this. Now, we're not yet calling this reset camera anywhere, so we need to do that as well. Okay, in order to reset this camera, like I said, we're going to do it in kind of a generic overarching way. And so what I want to do this from within the dialogue system, because our dialogue system has an event for whenever the conversation, the dialogue, and the cutscene ends. So we'll just simply call this at that point. So I need my dialogue system script. And for the life of me, let me just search for it. Dialog. Here we go. Dialogue system scene. Dialogue system.gd. That should be it. Okay, this is the script. And boy, is it a script. It is a chunky script. 200 lines of code. Could probably be cleaned up. But, you know, it works. So what we're going to do within this script is we're going to find that point in which all dialogues and cutscenes would exit when we know we need to return the camera to the player. And that's going to be our hide dialogue. So we've got a start and a hide dialogue. Okay, so this hides the dialogue system UI, and we call this just before we emit the finished event. Okay, so we're just kind of like deactivating everything in here and unpausing the game. So this is a great spot to just call that function in our player manager. And because of the way we wrote it, if nothing needs to happen, then nothing will happen. Otherwise, we will make sure that we move the camera back to the player. So I'm just going to go ahead and maybe right after we emit finished, I'm going to get our player manager and call the reset camera on player function, just like that. Okay, we already tested this where it didn't work, right? Did we do that? I think we did that. So what we're going to do now is just make sure it does work. So we have a little cutscene here. Just get through it. Let the camera move. Boink. And there we go. We're back to our player. Okay. Simple as that. So we've managed to create this little system. Now we can move the camera in our cutscenes. You know, these things can be used just like any of the other cutscene actions that we've created. and you can even do a little bit more with them if you want. You could add zoom in or out to these if you want to do something like that. And it would be pretty straightforward. Just essentially find a way to animate any of the properties on the camera that you think you would want to change. Okay, I'm not going to do zoom in and out for this because that wouldn't work with the viewport settings and whatnot I've got for my game. It would look kind of janky, but you know, that's just an option that you guys can take. All right, so that's this video. Go ahead and subscribe if you're new. I know I always say that, but I still get a lot of new people coming. And if you haven't checked out the Metroidvania Forge, I kind of encourage you to. I know many of you are really tied to this action RPG series. The Metroidvania Forge series is organized. It's kind of slow right now because we've just finished the chapter 1 where we're building our player foundations, but you might find some stuff that you want to integrate there. And that series is going to lead into me developing a map system that we'll be able to bring back to this project as well. Otherwise, keep doing what you're doing. Comment, follow along, comment and share. Tell me what you're working on. And if you've got a page or something, you know, you can find us on the Discord. If you want to share your game and get feedback, then go ahead and join that community. It's pretty awesome. And as always, we'll see you next time.